What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Understable Discourse. I'm back here at home. It was a wonderful week at Ledgestone, but we got a lot to talk about with the event, and let's get into it. So this past weekend was the Ledgestone Insurance Open, a very, very classic event on the Pro Tour. Been around for a long time, celebrating, I believe, their 15th year. And honestly, it was probably one of the most fun experiences that I've had at an event. I've been to Ledgestone 4 different times, and every time it seems to get better. I feel like they're learning a bit more about what they want to do and how they want to make the event better for the people who go there, not just for the pro players, but also for the AMs like us. And the event gets, I think, a little bit better every single year. There are obviously things that could be better when you run an event of that size. Everything isn't going to be perfect if you don't have a massive army of people and a lot of operators. And say what you will about Nate Heinold, but he is an operator when it comes to getting this stuff done. I've never seen someone who at that level can respond to so many questions and comments and also make sure things are running. But there are going to be gaps, and we saw that with different things like, some issues with some Flymart vendors over at Northwood Black, not knowing where to go, and just some issues like that. However, across the board, Ledgestone was a great event this year, and I won't burden you with all of the conversation about how I did, but some fun things happened. We had some guys from our area representing Lancaster in the pro side. In fact, one of my good friends, Ben Apple, he, at the ratings update, ended up rating himself out of MA1 eligibility because he has accepted cash. He is a registered pro with the PDGA, so he was not allowed to play on the MA1 side with the rest of us, so he decided to hop on the wait list for the pro division, and guess what? He got in. And so with only like a day of practice available for him for Northwood Black, he went out, did his thing, and he played 3 really, really wonderful rounds. He did not make the cut, but for a just newly minted 970 plus pro with only a day, a single round practice at Eureka Temp and a single round practice at Northwood Black, having to just jump in and do the thing, he outplayed his rating, and he played really well, and I couldn't be prouder for him. We also had some great performances from some other guys from Pennsylvania, like Lucas Oberholzer Hess and Jesse Longenecker, and a number of people in just across different divisions, and it was really great. It was a good time. I'm sad to be back because it's always great to be out playing disc golf and being around great courses and lots of wonderful people, and I had a lot of people come up and say hi to me, and it was a good time. But it is also nice to be home, kind of back into the normal swing of things, and we've got some really cool stuff going on related to the channel that I'll talk to you about at the end of today's episode. But enough about that, let's get into the actual event itself. Now, looking at Ledgestone this year, what we have is 2 rounds for the MPO side, 2 rounds over at Eureka Temp, and 2 rounds at Northwood Black. For the FPO, we've got 2 rounds at Sunset Hills and 2 rounds at Northwood Black on a slightly altered layout. And the general nature theme of this kind of setup is 2 rounds at a course that should be relatively open and birdieable, and 2 rounds at a course that is difficult, requiring a lot of patience, precision, and just preparation from the actual pros themselves. And it kind of always works itself out with the easier round being up first, and then having to sort of temper yourself as you go to Northwood Black, and then back to Eureka Temp, and it kind of flips for the ladies, going with Northwood, then Sunset, and then Northwood. So it starts harder there, have their easy stretch sprint in the middle, and then it ends with a more difficult layout. So some really, really unique outcomes this weekend. We're going to talk a bit about the course first. From a course layout perspective, there wasn't much difference between previous years and this year. If you're looking at Northwood Black and going, wow, that does not look like anything that we saw at the Champs Cup, that's because of the Champs Cup. They did a modified Northwood Gold layout, which combined a little bit of blue and a little bit of black, and got Northwood Gold. So if you go back 2 years ago to 2023, you'll see that the course for Northwood Black is almost entirely the same, minus a few different changes. Sunset Hills also didn't really see any changes, but Eureka Temp saw some, I think, small nuance changes that actually had some degree of, noticeable outcome for the MPO field. We'll talk about those real quick. The first and most obvious one is hole number 1. The tee pad was moved back, about 30 or 40 feet, probably closer to 30 feet, and set up a little bit. And for initial looks, it felt like it was going to be a harder tee shot. because it brought the tree on the left a little bit more into play and meant that you really had to push something hard out of that gap to get it over the water. And like I said, initially, we all kind of thought that's going to be harder. And then we got there and we watched people play the hole, and it almost felt like the gap made it easier because, number one, you actually had a legitimate tee pad and not a path that had a dip off in the front that kind of forces you to have a really kind of awkward plant foot area. But now you had a legitimate tee pad and you were set up a little bit, so if you could play the ceiling well enough, you could actually have a really, really good shot. And so the big question was, would it have any difference? Would it be negligible? All that kind of stuff. And there were opinions across the board of, this won't do anything different. It's just a better tee pad for spectating and all this stuff. Some people were saying this is going to be a lot harder. Well, the numbers, actually shore themselves out a little bit. And if we look at the actual play for this event from last year, last year and this year, specifically, I'm looking at after the cut, because let's be honest, there are a lot of people who play these events who aren't as skilled as the top level pros. And not that I don't care about their statistics. When we want to talk about the real difference making changes, we have to look at the top players in the field to see how it affects them, because a harder tee pad may affect players who are in that 970 to 990 range more aggressively than it'll affect players who are over 1,000 rated. So I'm looking at post cut line here for last year to this year comparison. So looking at last year, we saw that there were a total of 33 out of bounds drives, averaging in rounds 1 through 3, and only 4 out of bounds drives in round 4. And that tells you right there. So it's averaging 11 OB drives in rounds 1 through 3 before the cut, and had only 4 OB drives in round 4 after the cut, and played at a almost 0.7 of a stroke under par average back in 2024. Now you come into this year, and there were a total of 48 OB drives in round 1. I'm sorry, there were 33 OB drives on average in rounds 1 through 3. That means there were a total of 99 across those 3 rounds. So 33 out of bounds drives on average. This year there was a 48 out of bounds drives in round 1. So that is a total of 15 more out of bounds drives in total on hole 1. And you could chalk this up to, like, it's the new tee pad, it's the very first round, there's some nerves involved for sure. There were 7 out of bounds drives in round 4, and the hole played roughly maybe 0.15 strokes harder than last year. So I would say that by the numbers, the hole did play slightly harder. It scored a little bit harder. There were less fairway hits off the tee, less C1 in regulation, less C2 in regulation, and a slightly bigger bogey percentage for hole 1. So the hole 1 change, I think, had a small effect, maybe only in the first real round because of the difference it was for a lot of pros. But where we see the most interesting hole change was hole 12. Now, hole 12, as you know, is the water tower hole. It's probably one of the most iconic holes that Ledgestone has. Maybe one of the more iconic holes on the tour when you think about, like, you could look at it and just go, oh, I know exactly where that is and what that is. So the way hole 12 works is you're playing down kind of at the road, uphill to the water tower. And you can choose to lay up, or you can go for it, and there's a inbounds area that wraps the water tower. And normally they have it set so that you are approaching the water tower perfectly straight back. There's a pipe on the back of the water tower, and then you draw a straight line down to the road. It cuts the water tower perfectly in half, and that's where it's at. And you can see on the map that they are basically saying there's a line to the left and the right. It's equal distance. Choose what you want. That's what you have for that shot. This year, they moved the tee pad maybe 50 feet off to the right. And doing so changes the angle that you have coming into this green enough that on the actual tee sign, they don't show like the flight path for the left side of the water tower. And they have also shrunk the OB around the green. And you wouldn't know that unless you were there this year, because the tee signs don't even show you that. Normally, there are banners that wrap around this green, and the OB is maybe a meter from those banners, as it's supposed to be. This year, it looked like the OB was 2 meters from the banner and really made the green smaller and harder to access, and especially with this new angle, it made things very interesting. So visually, if you wouldn't have it pointed out to you, you probably wouldn't know that any change happened. But this change was decently significant, because from last year after the cut to this year after the cut, it played a third of a stroke harder for the field. It had twice as many OB strokes as last year, 22% less C1 in regulation, 12% less birdies, 10% more bogeys, and in 2024, there were 0 double bogeys on the hole. This year, it was the most double bogeyed hole on Eureka Temp with 10% double bogeys. That's a pretty dramatic change over just shifting the tee pad to the right. And I love this kind of stuff, because what it did was it took a hole that was already a little bit difficult but played relatively easy for the top level of the field on a course that they kind of laud as a more, I would say, straightforward, simplistic course to get some good birdies. And they made a small tweak, and it made the hole, I think, significantly difficult enough to warrant the change. And I love this kind of stuff. It's a great tweak in my mind, and I hope they do this in the future. It's a really, really solid change to the hole itself. When we look at the actual events, or the results for this past weekend, I'm going to start on the MPO side, because it's a bit more straightforward of what we were able to see across the weekend. And coming out of the first round at Eureka Temp, surprise, surprise, we've got some hot rounds being shot. And the feature card for round one was Anthony Barella, Gannon Burr, Paul McBeth, and Calvin Heimberg. Now, you could point out every feature card we've had this year. That might be one of the most electrifying feature cards that I have seen coming out of the first round of an event all season long. And they did not disappoint, as all 4 of them were the top 4 scorers, minus a bunch of ties at -8, but because of, Calvin's lower PDGA number. So we have the exact same group going from round 1 into round 2 as the lead card. You have AB and Gannon kind of popping off at Eureka, shooting 13 and 12 under respectively. Paul shooting the lone 9 under par, and then Calvin, along with Isaac and Ezra Robinson, Evan Scott, Luke Taylor, and Colin Bryant, shooting an 8 under par. So you got some really, really impressive scores there to start the round off. And we all know that Eureka Temp is a course where it's going to be a sprint right out the gate. You got to get as many of the birdies as you can on that course. There's only a few holes that really offer any legitimate difficulty for the pro field. And we saw it there in round 1. Going into round 2, where we enter arguably the hardest course, maybe not arguably, the hardest course on the Pro Tour, stacked up there next to courses like the Monster and Tampere. We've got Northwood Black with one of the hardest holes on tour, hole 12, the, as Jeremy Colin calls it, the par 6. And shooting a good round on this course is difficult. And if you have anywhere over like a 5, if you shoot 5 under or better, you can walk away going, I did my job today. If you can get, 7 or 8 under par, you can feel real good about yourself. And let me tell you something, that same lead card, they popped off again with one minor alteration to that. AB shoots a 3 under par, respectable across the board. I would pay an arm and a leg to be able to shoot 3 under par at Northwood Black. And that is just enough to drop him off of the feature card, or the lead card, going into round 3. And that's because Ezra Robinson popped off with an 8 under par, tying Calvin's 8 under par, to put themselves tied for third on the lead card going into the third round. Paul McBeth shoots a 9 under, which is pretty incredible, and is now only 1 stroke back of Gannon, who shoots a 7 under par. So people are, the rustling starting to happen. Paul McBeth shoots hot at Northwood Black. Is this the event he's going to put it together and get that elusive win that we have not seen from him in 2 years now? Going into round 3, all eyes are on, Paul. All eyes are on Gannon. Can they keep up this same level of pressure? And the answer is yes and no. So Paul shoots a 2 under par, which once again is a respectable-ish score on Northwood Black, but it's not going to be enough to keep up with another 8 under par coming out of Gannon Buhr, keeping himself in solo first place by 3 strokes, but approaching him quickly. You've got Kyle Klein shooting an incredible 10 under par, along with Andrew Marweed, who shot 10 under par. But Kyle Klein makes his way onto the lead card in solo fourth, and Anthony Barella gets the job done, 6 under par, finds himself back on the lead card, and Luke Taylor coming out of nowhere with an 11 under par to be 3 strokes back of Gannon going into Eureka Temp. Now, a lot of people at that point were saying that, well, Gannon's going to win now, because there's no way that Gannon doesn't keep up with the race that happens at Eureka Temp. It's a very, very hard course to close a gap on. Northwood Black, you can close a gap on somebody there, but closing a gap at Eureka Temp, a arguably, birdie sprint of a course, is not easy to do. And let me tell you something. Even though it was incredibly hot this past week, and humidity was off the charts, I saw several people actually having to have the paramedics called because of overheating and that kind of thing. All other facets of the weather were extremely agreeable for disc golf. The wind, what wind? I mean, it was an incredibly open and available course for scoring. So going into the final round, Gannon's up by 3, and he just has to do Gannon stuff. And so we get some pretty incredible rounds coming from a number of people. AB shoots an 8 under par, which is great. You got Calvin Heimberg dropping a 12 under par, doing Calvin things of surging on the final day or surging in one of the rounds. Luke Taylor shoots a 5 under, dropping himself kind of out of that top 4 position, but really, it comes down to, can Kyle Klein and Isaac Robinson keep up with Gannon Buhr? And even though Isaac and Kyle both shot minus 12s apiece, which is an unbelievable round, that was not enough to keep up with Gannon shooting an 11 under par and advancing his lead to 5 strokes and taking the win back-to-back at the Ledgestone Open. And, at this point, it kind of feels like Gannon's going to win every single thing he touches this year. I'm surprised. I'm not surprised at just how well he's playing across the board. And if you look, this 38 under is exactly the same 38 under he shot last year to win. And last year they played 4 rounds at Eureka Temp compared to this year where they had to play 2 rounds at Northwood Black. I've heard some arguments that last year the weather wasn't as great at Eureka Temp, but still 2 rounds at Northwood Black and 2 rounds of Temp to have the same score as 4 rounds of Temp, even with tough weather. It's still incredible disc golf, and the level of play that we're seeing from these MPO players is insane to think about. In fact, when you look at Northwood Black from 2023, which is the closest iteration we have to what we saw this past weekend, the average, for the players who were scoring very, very well, they were coming out of 2 rounds of Northwood Black around 10 to 11 under par. Whereas this year, we're seeing the best players coming out of Northwood Black at 15 to 16 under par. So we're seeing a 4 to 5 stroke improvement from the best players in the field across 2 rounds at Northwood Black, which is just absolutely insane to think about. Now, hopping over to the FPO side of the aisle, we've got some pretty interesting things to look at here. Jumping into the first round of the actual event, we've got Rebecca Cox hopping off to an early lead at 6 under par, with Owen, Kat, and Emily Weatherman following behind very closely. And don't worry if you saw my hand. I didn't break it or bruise it. I got a lot of bad poison ivy while I was out there, so I've got it wrapped up to keep it from spreading it to my 2-year-old. But we saw some really great rounds. Addison Woodard, Holly Finley, Madison Walker, Valerie Mandahano, Hannah Wynn, and Kelly Foster being able to shoot under par at Northwood Black, which is just incredibly impressive across the board for the FPO field, especially as they go into Sunset, where the sprint is always on. Sunset, if you don't know what that is, you have never seen it before, it's a course they typically have in the past let all the MA1 players go out and play, and it's one of my favorite courses in terms of open, like, golf style golf courses that I think I've ever played. And it's the area where they can go out and just kind of shred the course a little bit, and we see that with Kat Murch getting a 6 under par, jumping off to a 3-stroke lead over Owen, a 4-stroke lead over Rebecca Dawn, and a 4-stroke lead over Valerie Mandahano, who both shot a respective 6 and 5 under par, respectively. So Cat Merch is jumps into an early lead, and one of the biggest questions that we have after round 2 is, where's Holland Handley at? And if you scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll down the leaderboard, you find Holland Handley sitting at 40th place at 10 over par for the event. That is 20 strokes out of the lead. And not just 20 strokes out of the lead, that's 7 strokes out of the cash line. So not looking very good for Holland Handley, although one more round at sunset, if she were to put down a nice, 5, 6, 7 under par, she could very easily find herself back above that cut line. So all eyes are on Holland Handley and Cat Merch as whether or not she can kind of keep up that same pace. Round 3, another round at Sunset Hills. This is where we expect more incredible scoring, especially second day in a row. Once again, I said it's very, very hot, but the wind was very, very, I would say, manageable and easy to deal with this past weekend. And we'll start with who our eyes were on first. What happened to Holland Handley? And the answer is, she shot a 4 down, which was really solid, but she unfortunately needed another 3 strokes under par, and she misses the cut line. Which is, not only is this the first time Holland Handley's missed the cut line this year, it's the first time she's finished anywhere this far down the leaderboard. It's a very uncharacteristic finish for Holland Handley. I don't know that I saw anything that was going on or any kind of injury or whatnot, but we've come to expect, I think, so much more from her this season, and to not see it here was a bit shocking, to be honest with you. Hopping up the leaderboard, though, we look and Cat Merch shoots another great 6 down under par, 6 under par, leaving herself in second place. Rebecca Dawn hits a 9 under par, incredibly impressive, and Missy Gannon with a 7 under par. And the real story of round 3 was Valerie Mandahano shooting a scorching hot 1035, rated 11 under par at Sunset Hills by going 6 for 6 to finish the round off, and kind of cementing herself as the person to be chased in round 4 going into Northwood Black. And so we see really this race is coming down to this top 3 or 4 people going into this final round, where we get some real fireworks, some super fireworks. We see Rebecca Dawn shoot a 1 under par. Okay, respectable, finding herself in solo 4th place. Cat Merch, 2 under par, solo 3rd place. But coming from the chase card, 8 under par at Northwood Black, Owen Scoggins, going bananas. 7 under on the back 9, just showcasing that it doesn't matter like what your form is or how not far you can throw or whatever, that she can slice and dice up any course you give to her. The world champion, Owen Scoggins, fights back to tie Valerie Mandahano, where they go into a playoff on hole 18. And this is where things get extra juicy, because we have the playoff, and the first time through, both of them bogey it. Second time through, Owen hits a massive putt from distance to secure the par in the hole, and she walks up, and we see her kind of say something to Valerie, and Valerie kind of gives her like, yeah, sure. And Owen reaches down and picks up Valerie's disc and walks off and hands it to Valerie. And then we have Nate Heinel being like, hey ladies, we have to actually finish the hole. And they kind of look a bit befuddled, like, what? And yeah, Owen picks up Valerie's disc. So there's a lot of conversation right now going on about whether or not that's some kind of degree of interference, or should a call have been made against Owen there. And you have people who are very by the book saying that yes, a call should have been made. That should have been the end of the event right there. Owen should have been hit with a penalty, and Valerie wins the event. Then you have others that are like, spirit of the game. It was really hot. They all thought this was match play, yada yada. And then that, ultimately Valerie, she goes on to win anyway, so who cares? My perspective is very, very simple, and that's why are the top pros not knowing that you have to hole out in a playoff? Are we not saying in the playoff spiel we give to all the players, all holes must be completed? This is not a match play. So I think when it comes to what was the best thing for the event, it was how it was handled. But it showcases that there's just so much gray in our rules right now that they need to be seriously looked at if we're going to kind of prevent these things from happening in the future. But like I said, Valerie goes back, she pops her mini down, gets a nod from whoever says, yep, that's okay. She puts it in with the bag on her back, which is like incredibly interesting that she does that, because if she just casually misses that, then the tournament's over. And they go back and they replay the hole, and Valerie accomplishes something pretty spectacular. She gets the birdie on hole 18, which has only been, I think, accomplished a couple times the entire event and probably ever at Northwood Black on hole 18. And she takes the win over Owen Scoggins, which is really, really incredible. One of my friends was there on the ground during the playoff and said that at one point Valerie, while walking down the fairway with Owen, said something along the lines of, hey, Owen, you got Worlds, you can let me have this one, please. Huge win for Valerie. Regardless of whatever happened with the pickup disc, it doesn't matter. An incredible event from both Owen and Valerie, and a huge win for Valerie. It's her first win since 2023 Idlewild, and just incredible to see her take another win. I feel like she's always been a player who's capable of winning and is showing us that she's kind of coming back, because before this event, well, including this event, she has not finished worse than 6th since the Northwest Championship, except for one singular time, and that was at Worlds, where she finished 16th. So she's been playing incredible, like exceptional disc golf recently, and it's really, really great to see. So huge props to Valerie, huge props to Owen for their wins, and then, you know, always big props to Gannon. There was a bit of a story about Gannon and possible time violation issues and him feeling being targeted. For more details on that, he had some great interviews over on Staggered Stance and an incredible interview on Tour Life. I would go check those out for all the juicy details there, where he kind of walks through what happened, and I think once again brings up the issue with the gray area of the rules and all that's involved with that. So I would go check those out if I were you, to get all the juicy details. But that wraps up the Ledgestone Open. It was a really, really fun event. I was super excited to be there, and it was a good time. This upcoming weekend, we have ourselves the Idlewild event, LWS Open at Idlewild. It's a very, very iconic course, iconic event. Idlewild's been around for a long time. One of the things that's extremely infamous about Idlewild is that no person has won it twice. It is a first-timers event if there ever was one. And so excited to see what happens. Joey Buckets took the win last year. I think we're going to have some really interesting finishes. We always do at Idlewild. It's a bit of a, no, I wouldn't say a shorter course, but it's shorter than the average course on tour, and requires a lot of gap hitting and very, you know, intricate shot shaping. So for the FPO side of things, I struggle to pick Holland with the way she's performed over the last 2 events, but I'm going to trust that Holland continues to figure it out, and I'm gonna say that you know, I'm gonna put Holland Hanley coming in 3rd for the event. I'm gonna have Owen Scoggins coming in 2nd, and I'm actually gonna say this is the first time we see Missy Gannon back to her form. Missy Gannon's gonna take 1st for the FPO side of the aisle. Hopping over into the MPO side of things, it's hard not to take Gannon the way he's playing disc golf right now, so I'm putting Gannon in 1st. You know, if you don't like it, tell me in the comments who you think is taking 1st. Coming in 2nd for me, I'm going to go with Isaac Robinson, and coming in 3rd, I'm going with Sullivan Tipton. So we're going to go Gannon, Isaac, Sully for my 1, 2, 3 over on the MPO side of things. But that's going to do it for, you know, our look at Idlewild and our look back at Ledgestone. I think there's a lot of great disc golf to be played yet this season. We're slowly approaching the playoffs, and a lot more excitement is happening. Now, as for me and the channel, like the thing I was telling you about earlier, I've been looking a lot into sort of how we do these videos, and they come out on Wednesdays, which, you know, you have an event on Sunday finishing up, and then you got Monday, Tuesday, and all day Wednesday. You've probably listened to so many other people talk about the event, and I want to be able to give you the opportunity to hear some of the details of the event before anyone else gets it to you. So we're going to be splitting up our video into 2 separate videos a week. You're going to be, so instead of getting a near 40-minute video of an event recap and a look ahead to the upcoming event, we're going to be splitting that up so that sometime on Monday, you will be getting a video detailing the events of the previous weekend. I heard it here first kind of scenario, right? And it'll give me a chance to kind of go into more detail about some of the statistics and some of the holes and some of the players specifically, instead of just looking at just the top players, to keep the video, to a certain degree of consumable time for all of you. It'll give me a chance to sort of dive in a little bit deeper. And then as we go through the week, a video will come out on Wednesday that's going to detail the upcoming weekend, things to expect, things to look for, and the course. And that way you have a chance to listen to something that's a bit more consumable, with a little bit more detail about the previous event, and something that is more consumable and with more detail about the upcoming event. So I'm hoping that's something that everyone will enjoy. We're going to start that process here after Idlewild, so be on the lookout for that. And as we continue to experiment and grow things at the channel, I also have one other really cool thing up my sleeve that I'm not quite ready to tell you about yet, because we're almost there to being able to do it. Not quite yet, and I don't want to blow the surprise. So, but until then, let me know what you think. Let me know if you enjoyed Ledgestone. Did you watch it? Did you ever play Ledgestone? Would you go out to Ledgestone? And then what do you think about Idlewild? Let me know in the comments down below. Obviously, if you can like the video, that's great. Subscribe is super helpful to the growth of the channel. It's a way of supporting this new venture that I'm doing over here. But I appreciate every single one of you who listen every week. And for those of you who do tell me that you listen and you enjoy the show, it means the world to me. Doesn't matter if it's one person watching or if it's a million people watching. I am so happy that some people enjoy getting to listen to my takes on disc golf. And it's a really good time for me. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And obviously go out there, play some disc golf, watch some disc golf. And until next time, this is Understable Discourse.